The colony world of New Cascadia was a beautiful place. Green forests covered the mountains. Clean rivers ran through the valleys. 4 million humans had built their homes there over the past 50 years. They had farms and schools and hospitals. Children played in the streets of small towns. Old people sat on porches and watched the sunset. It was a peaceful world, far from the troubles of the galaxy. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council 30 years ago. The council was old, very old. It had existed for 12,000 years, and it included hundreds of alien species. When humans first made contact, they were excited. They thought they had found friends among the stars. The council welcomed them, taught them new technologies, and helped them build colonies on distant worlds. But the council had rules. Many rules. And one of those rules said that any species could claim ownership of a planet if they had surveyed it first. It did not matter if someone else was already living there. The Velthari were a powerful species in the council. They had 4 eyes and gray skin, and they controlled many mining corporations. 600 years before humans even had electricity, a Velthari survey ship had passed through the New Cascadia system. They had recorded some notes about mineral deposits and then moved on. They never came back. They forgot about it completely. Until now. A Velthari corporation found the old survey records. They saw that New Cascadia had valuable minerals under its mountains. They filed a claim with the council. The claim was approved in less than a day. The humans on New Cascadia received a message. They had 90 days to leave their homes, their farms, their entire lives. The planet now belonged to the Velthari. Governor Samuel Price was a calm man. He had gray hair and kind eyes, and he had led the colony for 15 years. He read the message 3 times because he could not believe it. "They want us to leave?" he said to his advisors. 4 million people? In 90 days? Where would we even go? He sent a message to Earth asking for help. He sent a message to the council asking for more time. He tried to negotiate. He offered to share the planet. He offered to help with the mining. He did everything a reasonable person would do. The council did not care. The Velthari did not care. The 90 days passed, and the humans of New Cascadia did not leave. They could not leave. There was nowhere to go. On the 91st day, 30 warships appeared in orbit. They belonged to the Council Enforcement Fleet. Their commander was a Velthari admiral named Varth. He sent one final message to the planet below. "You have refused to follow council law. You will now face the consequences." What happened next would change the galaxy forever. The bombardment began at dawn, local time. The warships fired their weapons at the cities below. Not at military targets, because there were no military targets. New Cascadia had no army. It had no weapons. It had only homes and schools and hospitals. The city of Haven was hit first. 50,000 people lived there. The plasma beams turned buildings into ash in seconds. People ran through the streets, screaming, trying to find shelter. There was no shelter. The beams fell from the sky like rain, and everything they touched burned. Katie Marsh was 7 years old. She was in her classroom when the attack began. Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, pushed all the children under their desks and told them to stay down. Katie heard the explosions outside. She heard people screaming. She smelled smoke. Then the ceiling collapsed. Katie woke up in darkness. Something heavy was on top of her. She could not move. She could not see. She could hear her own breathing and nothing else. She lay there for hours, waiting, crying, calling for her mother. Rescue workers found her the next day. They pulled her from the rubble, and she saw the sky for the first time since the attack. It was orange. The whole sky was orange from the fires burning across the city. She would remember that orange sky for the rest of her life. The bombardment lasted 6 hours. When it finally stopped, 2.3 million humans were dead. More than half the population of New Cascadia gone in a single morning. The survivors wandered through the ruins, looking for family members, looking for help, looking for answers. Governor Price survived. He stood in the ashes of his Capitol building and stared at the sky where the warships still waited. "Why?" he whispered. "Why did you do this?" Admiral Vorath's response came through the emergency broadcast system. His voice was calm, almost bored. "This is standard pacification protocol. Your people refused to follow council law. We demonstrated the consequences. You may now negotiate the terms of your surrender and relocation. The council hopes you have learned from this experience." On Earth, General Daniel Cole watched the footage in his office. He was 52 years old. He had served in the military for 30 years, but he had never fought in a real war. There had been no wars since humanity joined the council. That was supposed to be one of the benefits of membership. Cole watched the videos of burning cities. He watched survivors crying over dead children. He watched the orange sky of New Cascadia and felt something cold settle in his chest. He requested a meeting with the council's ambassador to Earth. The ambassador was a Velthari named Coordinator Sithax. He arrived at Cole's office the next day, moving with the slow confidence of someone who had never been afraid of anything. "This was regrettable," Sithax said. His 4 eyes blinked one at a time. "But you must understand, General. This is how galactic civilization maintains order. The Velthari have conducted such operations for 8,000 years. Other species did the same before us. It is efficient. It is accepted." "Accepted by whom?" Cole asked. His voice was quiet. "By all civilized species. Small conflicts, controlled demonstrations of force, acceptable casualties. This prevents larger wars. Surely you see the wisdom." Cole looked at the alien for a long moment. He thought about the history he had studied as a young man. He thought about the wars humanity had fought before the council. He thought about concepts like total war and mutually assured destruction. He thought about what happened when humans truly wanted to destroy something. "I see," Cole said finally. "Thank you for explaining." Sithax left the meeting feeling satisfied. He reported to his superiors that the humans seemed to understand the situation. They would fall in line now, like every other species before them. He was very, very wrong. That night, General Cole sat alone in his office. He pulled up files he had not looked at in decades. Old files. Human files. Records of wars fought long before the council existed. He read about Dresden and Hiroshima. He read about the Somme and Stalingrad. He read about what humans did to each other when they truly wanted to win. And he began to plan. General Daniel Cole spent the next year learning. He read everything he could find about the Galactic Council. He studied their history, their wars, their way of thinking. And the more he learned, the more he understood why New Cascadia had happened. The council had existed for 12,000 years. In all that time, hundreds of wars had been fought between member species. Planets had been bombed. Millions had died. But no species had ever been completely destroyed. No civilization had ever been truly conquered. This was not an accident. It was the system. Cole met with Admiral Patricia Dunn in a secret bunker deep under the Rocky Mountains. She was the commander of Earth's defense fleet, though that fleet was small. 47 ships against the Council's 8,000. It was not a fair comparison. "I've been studying their war records," Dunn said. She pulled up holographic displays showing battles from thousands of years ago. The pattern is always the same. One side attacks civilian targets. The other side responds. Both sides take casualties. Then they negotiate, and no one ever actually wins? No, that's the point. Dunn zoomed in, on a particular battle. Look at this. The Silvari lost 6 million people in a war 4,000 years ago. But after the negotiations, they were still there. Still a member of the council. Still powerful. Cole studied the display. What about species that refused to negotiate? Dunn's face became serious. The council calls them extinction events. A few species tried to fight back. Really fight back. They were destroyed completely. Wiped out. The council doesn't talk about them much. So the choice is simple. Accept civilian massacres as normal or face extinction. That's how they see it, yes. Cole stood up and walked to a window. There was nothing to see underground. Just rock walls, but he stared at them anyway. Patricia, have you ever studied human military history? The real history, before the council? Some of it? It's ugly. Yes, it is. Cole turned back to face her. We learned something that these council species never learned. We learned what happens when a war has no limits. When both sides are willing to destroy everything rather than lose. Mutually assured destruction. Exactly. For decades, we pointed nuclear weapons at each other. Enough weapons to kill every person on Earth 100 times over. And we lived with that. Every day, knowing that everything could end in an afternoon. He sat back down. The council has never faced anything like that. Their wars have rules. Their wars have limits. Their wars have acceptable casualties. Dunn understood what he was saying. You want to show them what war without limits looks like. I want them to understand that some species don't play by their rules. That some species would rather die than accept what they accepted. Daniel, we can't beat them. The numbers are impossible. I don't want to beat them. I want to scare them. Cole pulled up new files on the display. I've been working on something. A new military doctrine. Something no council species has ever seen. He showed her his plans. New weapons, built in secret. New tactics, designed not to win battles, but to make war so terrible that no one would want to fight. Autonomous drones that attacked without mercy. Missiles that split into thousands of pieces. Ships designed to ram enemies when their weapons ran dry. This is insane, Dunn said quietly. Yes, that's the point. The council expects rational enemies. Enemies who want to survive. Enemies who will negotiate when the cost gets too high. Cole's voice was cold. I'm going to show them what an irrational enemy looks like. Over the following months, Cole built his new military in secret. Earth's government supported him quietly. The massacre of New Cascadia had changed something in humanity. People were angry. People were scared. And people were willing to do whatever it took to make sure it never happened again. Cole recruited carefully. He looked for soldiers who understood what he was planning. Soldiers who were willing to fight without mercy, without hesitation, without hope of surrender. He found more volunteers than he expected. One of them was a young pilot named Katie Marsh. She was 22 years old now. She had grown up in the ruins of New Cascadia, raised by rescue workers after her entire family died in the bombardment. She remembered the orange sky. She remembered the smell of smoke. She remembered lying in the darkness under the rubble, waiting to die. When she heard that General Cole was building a new kind of military, she signed up immediately. Why do you want to join? The recruitment officer asked her. Because I want them to feel what I felt, Katie said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were hard. I want them to know what it's like to watch everything burn. Cole met her personally. He looked at her service record, her test scores, her psychological profile. Then he looked at her face and saw something familiar. The same cold determination he felt himself. You understand what I'm asking, he said. I'm not asking you to fight a normal war. I'm asking you to become something that the galaxy has never seen. Something terrible. I understand. There will be no mercy. No prisoners. No stopping until they break or we die. Katie thought about her mother, her father, her little brother. All dead. All buried under the rubble of their home, while Valkyrie admirals talked about acceptable casualties. Good, she said. Cole nodded. Welcome to the program. By the end of the year, Cole had a small but deadly force. 200 ships, equipped with weapons the Council had never imagined. 10,000 soldiers, trained to fight without limits. And a doctrine built on a simple idea. Make war so terrible that no one would ever want to fight. Humanity again. He knew the Council would test them soon. They always tested new species that showed resistance. It was part of their system. Demonstrate force, accept casualties, negotiate. They had been doing it for 12,000 years. Cole was counting on it. The test came sooner than expected. A Corvani delegation arrived on Earth with a demand. Humanity would surrender its agricultural world of Harvest Prime. The reasoning was bureaucratic. The Corvani had survey claims from before humanity existed. The planet was legally theirs. Earth's government refused. The Corvani ambassador smiled. He had seen this before. Young species always refused at first. Then they learned. You will regret this decision, he said. The Council will send a demonstration fleet. Your people will die. And then you will negotiate like everyone else. General Cole was watching the meeting from a secure room. He turned to Admiral Dunn. They're sending a fleet? 50 ships. Standard enforcement action. Cole smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Good. Let them come. The galaxy was about to learn a new word. A human word. A word that would change everything. Total war. The Council took 6 months to prepare. They gathered ships from 4 different species. 300 warships, the largest fleet assembled in 1,000 years. Corvani battlecruisers. Valkyrie destroyers. Silvari carriers. Corthan dreadnoughts. It was a force designed to crush any resistance. The fleet commanders met before departure. Admiral Sith of the Valkyrie led the meeting. She was tall and confident, her 4 eyes scanning the other officers with calm authority. The humans surprised us once, she said. They will not surprise us again. We know their tactics now. Drones. Suicide attacks. We are prepared. The other commanders agreed. They had studied the footage from the first battle. They had upgraded their defenses. They had trained their crews for the strange human way of fighting. We will jump directly to their home system, Sith continued. We will destroy their fleet. Then we will burn their cities until they surrender. This will end quickly. No one disagreed. The mathematics were simple. 300 ships against perhaps 100 human vessels. The outcome was obvious. They jumped into the Sol system on a cold morning, Earth time. The 300 warships appeared in a flash of light, spreading out in perfect formation. Their sensors immediately began scanning for targets. General Cole was waiting for them. He sat in a command chair aboard the space station called Prometheus Ring. It was a massive structure, built in secret over the past 3 years. Not just a station, but a fortress, bristling with weapons and surrounded by defensive platforms. Welcome to Sol, Cole broadcast on all channels. You have entered human space with hostile intent. In accordance with our stated doctrine, you will not be permitted to leave. Admiral Sith heard the message and frowned. Not be permitted to leave? What kind of threat was that? Arrogant creatures, she muttered. All ships advance. Standard attack formation. The Council fleet moved forward. They expected to encounter the human fleet in open space, to fight a traditional battle, ship against ship. Instead, they flew into a trap. The Sol system had been transformed into a killing ground. Mines floated everywhere, hidden among asteroids, disguised as debris. They detonated when Council ships came close. tearing holes in hulls. Defense platforms, scattered throughout the system, fired volleys of missiles before the fleet could even target them. The first hour cost the Council 30 ships. Not in a battle, but in a slow grind through endless hazards. Every time they destroyed one threat, another appeared. The humans had spent 3 years preparing for this moment, and they had prepared well. "This is insane," a Corvani captain transmitted. "They've turned their own system into a death trap." "Press forward," Admiral Sith commanded. "These are just obstacles. The real battle will be at Earth." She was right. The real battle was waiting as the Council fleet pushed deeper into the system. The human ships finally emerged. Not 100 vessels, as the Council had expected, but over 200. Cole had hidden them among the planets and moons, waiting for the right moment. And they fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Human pilots flew their ships directly at enemy vessels, weapons firing constantly. When they ran out of ammunition, they rammed. When their ships were crippled, they aimed for the biggest enemy they could find and accelerated until impact. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. They died with their hands on the controls, killing enemies with their final breath. Katie Marsh led a squadron of fast attack ships. She was 30 years old now, and she had spent 8 years training for this day. Every night, she dreamed about the orange sky of New Cascadia. Every morning, she woke up and continued preparing. Now, finally, she could answer the deaths of her family. Her squadron tore through a formation of Veltari destroyers. She fired missiles until her tubes were empty, then switched to guns. A Veltari ship exploded in front of her, and she flew through the debris without slowing down. "Katie, you've got 3 on your tail," her wingman reported. "I see them." She threw her ship into a tight turn, pushing the engines beyond their limits. Warning lights flashed across her console. She ignored them. She killed one pursuer with a well-timed mine release. The second died when she cut her engine suddenly and let it fly past, then shot it in the back. The third chased her around an asteroid until her wingman destroyed it. "Thanks," she said. "Thank me later. We have more incoming." The battle raged for 3 days. 3 days of constant fighting, constant death, constant destruction. The Council fleet had more ships, more firepower, more experience. But the humans had something else. They had the willingness to pay any price. Admiral Sith watched her fleet shrink hour by hour. She had started with 300 ships. After 1 day, she had 240. After 2 days, 180. After 3 days, she was down to 106. The humans had lost more. Over 60% of their fleet was gone. Prometheus Ring was damaged, whole sections dark and lifeless. But they would not stop. They would not negotiate. They would not surrender. "This is madness," Sith said quietly. She was standing on her bridge, watching another human destroyer crash into a Silvari carrier. Both ships exploded together, a bright flower of destruction against the darkness of space. "They're killing themselves just to kill us." Her tactical officer looked up. "Admiral, at this rate, they will run out of ships before we do. We can still win, can we?" Sith stared at the display. "And then what? We land on their planet, and what? Their soldiers will fight the same way. Their civilians will fight. We will have to kill millions to pacify them, and even then, they will resist." She thought about the Corvani admiral who had died at Harvest Prime. He had expected a quick victory. He had expected the humans to be reasonable. The humans were not reasonable. They were terrifying. On the 3rd day, General Cole sent a message to the Council fleet. His face was tired, his uniform stained with smoke and blood. Behind him, the bridge of Prometheus Ring was damaged, some stations dark, others sparking with electrical fires. "Admiral Sith," he said, "I know you can hear me. Look at what is happening. Your fleet is dying. My fleet is dying. This will continue until one of us has nothing left." He paused, letting the words sink in. "I don't want to destroy you. I don't want to kill your crews or burn your worlds. But I will. I will do whatever it takes to protect my people. That's what you never understood about us. We don't fight because we think we can win. We fight because some things are worth dying for." Sif listened in silence. "You can retreat," Cole continued. "Take what's left of your fleet and go home. Tell the Council that humanity is not worth the cost. Tell them that attacking us again will mean total war, not just for your fleets, but for your worlds, your people, your civilization. And if we refuse, then we will all die here together. And my last ships will jump to your homeworlds before they're destroyed. And they will burn everything they can reach before they're stopped." Cole's voice was calm, almost gentle. "I have crews who volunteered for that mission. They're already programmed their jump coordinates. They're waiting for my order." Sith felt something she had never felt before in her long military career. Fear. Real fear. Not the careful, calculated risk assessment of normal warfare. Raw, primal terror. "You're insane," she whispered. "No," Cole replied. "I'm human." The Council fleet withdrew that day. 106 ships, limping away from Earth, carrying the survivors of the largest military disaster in 1,000 years. They left behind the wreckage of nearly 200 ships and the bodies of over 40,000 crew members. Humanity had lost more than half its fleet. 2 orbital stations were destroyed. Tens of thousands of human soldiers were dead. But Earth still stood. Earth would always stand. General Cole watched the enemy fleet disappear into hyperspace. Beside him, Admiral Dunn was crying silently. They had won, but the cost was terrible. What happens now? She asked. Cole closed his eyes. Now, we wait. And we hope they listened. The 3 months after the Battle of Seoul were called the Silence by Council historians. General Cole had promised them 3 months of destruction if they did not agree to peace. He kept his promise. Human strike forces appeared without warning across Council space. They did not attack civilian targets. They did not bomb cities or kill innocents. They were very careful about that. Cole had been very clear with his commanders. They were not monsters. They would not become what they were fighting against. But military targets were fair game. On the Kovani homeworld, citizens watched as their orbital defense stations exploded one by one. Human ships appeared, fired, and vanished before anyone could respond. The Kovani fleet tried to catch them, but the humans refused to fight fair battles. They hit and ran. They attacked supply lines. They destroyed shipyards and fuel depots. On Valkyrie Prime, the High Council debated what to do. Some demanded a massive counterattack. Others urged negotiation. The arguments went in circles for weeks while human ships continued their campaign of destruction. Admiral Sith was called to speak before the council. She stood in the great chamber, surrounded by representatives from hundreds of species, and told them the truth. "We cannot win this war," she said simply. "Not in any meaningful way. Yes, we have more ships. Yes, we have more resources. But the humans have something we don't have. They have the willingness to lose everything." A Kovani representative stood up angrily. "They are one species. We are hundreds. We have ruled this galaxy for 12,000 years. And in 12,000 years, we have never faced an enemy like this." Sif's 4 eyes were tired. "They don't fight like us. They don't think like us. They would rather die than submit. And more than that, they would rather kill us than let us threaten them again." The chamber fell silent. "I have seen their pilots crash their ships into ours deliberately. I have seen their soldiers fight until their weapons run dry, then attack with their bare hands. I have seen them turn their own system into a death trap that cost us nearly 200 ships." She paused, and they were smiling. They knew they were going to die, and they were smiling. Another representative spoke up. "What do you suggest?" "I suggest we accept their terms, whatever those terms are." Sith looked around the chamber. "Because the alternative is a war that will cost us more than we can imagine. Not just ships and soldiers, everything." The debate continued for another week. In the end, fear won. The Council sent a message to Earth asking for peace talks. Ambassador Linda Vasquez returned to the Council chambers. She was a former professor who had spent her career studying alien cultures. Now she carried the hopes of humanity in her hands. The new Council coordinator was a young Velthari named Thesa. She was inexperienced and frightened, elevated to her position after the previous coordinator resigned in disgrace. She faced the human ambassador with nervous eyes. "We wish to discuss peace," she said. "General Cole has terms," Vasquez replied. "They are not negotiable." She outlined the terms carefully. Humanity would not rejoin the Council. Instead, a new framework would be established. A framework with rules that actually protected people. No more bombardment of civilian populations. No more acceptable casualties. Wars would be fought between militaries, not against helpless civilians. Any species that violated these rules would face humanity's response. "You're asking us to change everything," Thesa said. 12,000 years of tradition. "We're asking you to be civilized." Vasquez's voice was firm, but not cruel. "Real civilization doesn't murder children to prove a point. Real civilization doesn't call mass death acceptable. You can build a better system. A system based on justice instead of fear. And if we refuse, then General Cole will continue his campaign. And next time, he won't limit targets to military installations." It was a threat, but also a promise. Vasquez did not enjoy making it. She was a scholar, not a warrior. But she understood why it was necessary. The Council debated for 7 more days. In the end, they accepted humanity's terms. They had no choice. The alternative was too terrible to consider. The treaty was signed on the anniversary of the New Cascadia massacre. General Cole attended the signing ceremony, his first public appearance since the war began. He looked older than his years, gray and tired. The weight of all those deaths, human and alien alike, showed in his face. Coordinator Thesa approached him after the signing. She was still afraid of him, but she was also curious. "You could have destroyed us," she said quietly. "After what we did to your people, you could have taken revenge. Why didn't you?" Cole was silent for a moment. Because revenge wasn't the point. Justice was. Protection was. He looked at her with eyes that had seen too much death. "I never wanted to kill anyone. I just wanted to make sure no one would ever kill my people again. And the massacres? New Cascadia? I think about them every day. I think about the 2.3 million who died because your system said their deaths were acceptable." His voice was heavy. "But I also think about the 40,000 Council soldiers who died in the Battle of Seoul. I gave the orders that killed them. I carry that weight." Thesa did not know what to say. This human was nothing like she had expected. He was not a monster. He was just a person who had made terrible choices for the sake of his people. "We called you a barbarian," she admitted. "My people said you were uncivilized. Maybe we are." Cole smiled sadly. "But we're uncivilized in a very specific way. We refuse to accept cruelty. We refuse to accept injustice. And we will fight to the death rather than let anyone treat us as less than human." The new system spread slowly across the galaxy. Not everyone accepted it willingly. Some species grumbled about human interference. Some tried to continue the old ways in secret. But every time they did, human ships appeared to remind them of the consequences. 50 years later, Katie Marsh stood on the memorial grounds of New Cascadia. She was an old woman now, white-haired and tired. But she had survived. She had lived to see the galaxy change. A young Valkyrie stood beside her. His name was Sin, and he was the grandson of one of the commanders who had ordered the original massacre. My grandfather believed he was keeping order, Sin said quietly. He died still believing that. Katie looked at the memorial wall. 2.3 million names carved into black stone. Her parents were there. Her brother was there. Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, was there. Before the council, we had our own wars, she said. Terrible ones. We killed each other by the millions. But we learned something from those wars. We learned that some things are worse than death. What things? Living without freedom. Living without justice. Accepting cruelty because someone powerful says you have to. She touched the wall gently. General Cole understood that. He knew we might all die fighting the council. But he also knew that if we didn't fight, we would lose something more important than our lives. Sin was quiet for a long moment. The council called him a monster. History called him something else. Katie smiled, and her smile carried decades of pain and hope and hard-won peace. They called him the man who ended civilized conflict. Because he showed the galaxy that real civilization doesn't mean accepting atrocities. It means standing against them, no matter the cost. She walked away from the memorial, moving slowly through the green grass that had grown over the mass graves. New Cascadia was beautiful again. Children played in parks. Families had picnics near the lake. Life continued, as it always did, but the names remained. 2.3 million names carved in stone, reminding the galaxy what had happened. What humanity had paid. What humanity had done in response. General Cole died 10 years after the treaty, peacefully in his sleep. His last words, according to his nurse, were an apology. An apology to all the people he had killed, human and alien alike. He was buried on New Cascadia, among the people he had failed to save. His gravestone was simple. It carried only his name, his dates, and a single sentence. He made them remember. The galaxy never forgot. They could not forget. Every time a council species thought about attacking civilians, about burning cities, about acceptable casualties, they remembered what humanity had done. They remembered the drones and the suicide attacks and the total war. They remembered the species that would rather destroy everything than accept injustice, and they chose peace. Instead, not because they were good, not because they had learned to be kind, but because they were afraid of the humans. Afraid of what humans would do if pushed on. It was not a perfect peace. It was not a peaceful peace. It was peace built on fear and maintained by the threat of destruction. But it was peace. And that was enough. The orange sky of New Cascadia was blue now. The fires were long gone. The screams had faded into memory dot, and the children played in the sunshine, never knowing how close they had come to extinction, never knowing what their ancestors had done to save them. The council fleet arrived exactly when they said they would. 50 warships jumped into the space near Harvest Prime. They were Kovani vessels, painted in the dark colors of their species. Each ship was twice the size of anything humanity had built. Each ship had weapons that could burn a city in seconds. Admiral Keth commanded the fleet from his flagship. He was old by Kovani standards, with rough scales and tired eyes. He had done this many times before. Fly to a planet, destroy some cities, wait for the locals to surrender. It was boring work, but necessary. Send a standard warning. He ordered his communications officer. The message went out to Harvest Prime. Surrender now or face consequences. The people on the planet below received it and waited. They had been told to wait. General Cole had promised them that help was coming. Keth waited for a response. When none came after an hour, he shook his head. Young species were always stubborn at first. Begin bombardment of the northern continent. Target population centers only. Standard pacification. His weapons officers began selecting targets. Farms, towns, a small city called Riverside with 50,000 people. They had done this so many times that it felt routine. Then the sensors screamed. Admiral! Ships emerging from hyperspace. Keth looked at the tactical display. A small human fleet had appeared, maybe 30 vessels. He almost laughed. 30 ships against 50? The humans were brave, but foolish. This is Admiral Keth of the Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet, he broadcast. Your resistance is noted but pointless. Stand down, and you will be treated fairly. The human fleet did not respond. Admiral, they're accelerating toward us. Keth nodded. This too was expected. Young species always made a show of resistance before surrendering. Prepare for engagement. Standard defensive formation. We will destroy a few of their ships, and then they will negotiate. The two fleets closed the distance. Keth watched the human ships approach and noticed something strange. They were not flying in any formation he recognized. They were spread out in an odd pattern, almost chaotic. What are they doing? He muttered. Then the humans fired. Keth had expected missiles. He had expected energy weapons. He had expected the weapons that every species used. The weapons that the Council had used for thousands of years. He had not expected what came next. The human ships released clouds of small objects. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. The Kovani sensors could not track them all. The objects flew in every direction, moving too fast to intercept, changing course constantly. What are those things? Before anyone could answer, the objects reached the Kovani fleet. They were drones. Autonomous weapons, controlled by computers, programmed with a simple instruction: destroy everything. The drones attached themselves to Kovani ships and exploded. They flew into engine ports and detonated. They targeted sensors, weapons, bridges. They did not stop. They did not hesitate. They did not care about their own survival. Keth watched in horror as 3 of his ships exploded in the first minute. He had never seen anything like this. Council warfare was careful, controlled. Ships engaged each other at a distance, fired weapons, withdrew, negotiated. This was chaos. This was madness. All ships full defensive. He screamed, "Destroy those drones." His fleet tried to respond. They fired their weapons at the tiny targets, but there were too many. For every drone they destroyed, 10 more arrived. The human ships kept launching more and more, an endless swarm of death. Then the human ships themselves attacked. They did not stay at a safe distance. They flew directly into the Kovani formation, weapons firing constantly. When their missiles ran out, they used their main guns. When their guns overheated, they used ramming attacks. Keth saw a human destroyer, badly damaged, flames pouring from its hull, turn and accelerate directly toward his flagship. The ship was dying. Its crew must have known they had seconds to live. But instead of trying to escape, they chose to take a Kovani ship with them. He ordered evasive action, but it was too late. The human ship hit his flagship at full speed. The explosion tore through 6 decks. Keth was thrown across the bridge, his scales cracking against a metal wall. Around him, alarms screamed. His crew shouted damage reports. Through the view screen, he could see the rest of his fleet dying. Ship after ship exploded. Some tried to retreat, but the human vessels chased them down, refusing to let anyone escape. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, all 50 Kovani ships were destroyed. Every single one. Keth died on his bridge when his flagship finally broke apart. There were no survivors. The humans had made sure of that. General Cole watched the battle from a command station, far from the fighting. Admiral Dunn stood beside him, her face pale. "It's done," she said quietly. 50 ships. 0 survivors. Cole nodded. He felt no joy. He had just killed over 40,000 beings. Soldiers, yes, but still living creatures with families and dreams and futures. He would carry that weight forever, but it was necessary. "Send a message to the Council," he said. "Use all channels. I want every species to hear this." The message went out across the galaxy. General Cole's face appeared on screens throughout Council space. His voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. "This is General Daniel Cole of Earth. 3 years ago, your council murdered 2.3 million humans on New Cascadia. You called it acceptable casualties. You called it standard procedure. You expected us to submit, like every other species before us. We do not submit. Today, we destroyed your enforcement fleet. Every ship, every crew member. We gave no warnings. We took no prisoners. We offered no mercy. This is not revenge. This is education. Humanity is leaving the Galactic Council. From this day forward, any vessel that enters human space with hostile intent will be destroyed. Any species that attacks a human world will see their own worlds burn in return. You have spent 12,000 years fighting wars with rules. Wars with limits. Wars where everyone survives to negotiate afterward." Cole leaned forward, his voice dropping. "We do not fight those kinds of wars. We have a concept called total war. It means no rules, no limits, no stopping until one side is completely destroyed. For a time, we pointed weapons at our own planet that could have killed every human alive. We lived with that knowledge every day. You have never faced an enemy like us. You have never faced an enemy willing to destroy everything rather than lose. Attack us again, and you will learn what that means." The message ended. Across the galaxy, Council species watched in stunned silence. In the Great Council chambers, representatives from hundreds of worlds tried to understand what had just happened. The Kovani demanded revenge. The Velthari demanded action. Other species urged caution. In the end, they chose to fight. They had to fight. If they let humanity's actions stand, other species might get ideas. The system that had kept the peace for 12,000 years would collapse. They would send a larger fleet. They would crush these humans. They would restore order. They had no idea what they were about to face.